Welcome to day 9 of Breaking Through Your Matrix programming with your energy coaches and energy trainers, Jona Bryndis, that's me.
And Jeff Casper.
Hello, everybody.
Hey,
if
everyone.
we haven't lost you by now, after I think about 4 or 5 hours of energy training lessons here, you may be in for a very cool new view of yourself and the world around you. So up until now, we've gone through some of the things that exist in us that are obvious to us and that we can observe here through, the part in us that can be a little detached. And we've encountered many different aspects of control through our judgment, through our fear of pain, our past, and so forth. But now we're getting into this place where we're gonna teach you or show you what energy work can do to help you bypass some of your inner stuff, and ultimately, a little later in a few days, how it can also help you to bypass outer influences, things that come in from the outside. So we are excited that you're here with us, and we want to emphasize that the reason why we're doing this live is to be in contact with you during these sessions. And thank you guys for letting us know where you're from.
Yes, awesome.
We've got Australia, we've got South Africa, we've got Belgium. Wonderful. All right, so understand that the reason for us to go into this interaction with you is because energy or energy work or energy training is not just a one-way street, it's a two-way street. So we are upping the vibes here through being in contact with you during these sessions. But even if you watch the YouTube video later, please feel encouraged to share, to comment, to reflect, and of course, never forget to push the like button for every video, because that's basically your payment to us for this free service. I want to send a very heartfelt thank you to all of you who've been sharing in the past, who've sent us beautiful emails in regards to how some of these energy training lessons that we're sharing with you here, how that plays out in your life currently, like as you are following those lessons.
Yes.
And again, this is also something we want to emphasize here, is that this is all about practical implementation. Okay, we're not offering you sort of a conceptual theoretical course on entanglement and non-locality and retrocausality. All these concepts play into what we are describing to you, but the very nature of transcoaching, or the ability to transcode things from the energetic into the physical 3D, is what we are training here with you. So it's all about the physical integration in the end. It's all about doing it, walking the talk, and not just sort of theoretizing about, how energies work. However, we do need to support you or empower you with a vocabulary here in order for you to move to these places that your ego simply can't make up. I mean, you can try to see energies or to read energies, but you'll never really feel that that you actually have a good contact with that. You'll maybe visualize colors or visualize pictures that you have seen on the internet before, and yet you won't be able to really feel it. The objective of today's lesson is to get you into this place of not just courage, but also empowerment to really begin to feel your feelings, to feel your sensations, to feel your emotions, as stupid as this may sound. So allowing, as opposed to controlling, which would be our most natural ego mechanism, to get a grip on, things such as everything is energy, or conceptualizing things and detaching from it in a theoretical way. That's another way of our ego to, or the attempt of our ego to control energies. The bottom line is, and in energy work, this counts for every level or every layer of energy that you're working on, is that you won't be able to control it. It's beyond your brain, your mental mind's capacity, bandwidth, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so before we begin to share some really cool new tools and lingo with you, and introduce some of the fundamentals of energy work, we need to talk about signal processing and how this even works within us. Okay, so there's of course something that we all have, which is a primary processing channel. So you've probably heard about this. Some people are more visual than mm-hmm. others. Some people are more tactile. In general, our observation here is that males tend to be more visual as far as their primary signal processing is concerned, and females tend to be more tactile or kinesthetic in their perception of their own sensations. However, we also have secondary channels. So most of us are kind of like a mixture of just to make an example here, Jeff, for instance, you're more like a visual tactile, yeah. right? And I'm more like a tactile visual. Mm-hmm. So this means basically that when Jeff perceives things, he will first perceive them in a visual way. He will see things, perhaps not always with his eyes open, but with sort of the inner mind's eye. Mm-hmm. And then he will begin to feel it, and that will then allow his brain to confirm, okay, yes, this is what I'm experiencing. Whereas for me, I would first feel something, and not necessarily just emotionally. Very often, and this is quite common actually for empaths and energetically sensitives, through very subtle sensations in my body. Mm-hmm. All right. And then, I will begin to see. Ultimately, the art of energy work leads to a merging of all these channels within us. And mm-hmm. We will find ourselves with a little bit or a little lot practice at a place where all these different channels begin to come together. And we won't really be able to, pinpoint whether we felt this first or saw this first. It doesn't really matter. The whole point of me pointing this out to you or bringing this up is that you need to be aware of fixating on one particular way of perceiving things. This it also counts, of course, for our emotional, mental, and social, aka relationship things, because a lot of what we perceive, as we now know, is filtered by our ego and these hidden control mechanisms, and therefore often creates a false reality for us, or assumptions or conclusions, including, of course, judgments about what we're perceiving.
And that's why if you start to develop more than one way of sensing things, like visual and tactile and feeling and all that, you begin to create a healthier picture. You're not stuck in one area, So if your feeling is based upon your judgment and that's all you do, you're going to be stuck in judgment. But if you have a visual sense that doesn't quite match up to that, and we'll talk more about this here in a minute, then you begin to develop this ability to have a better picture of what's going on. You can begin to see the contradictions and begin to qualify or quantify what's going on.
It's basically the same as we talked about the last 2 days. It's like kind of zooming out and increasing the perspective into the larger picture, into the context, rather than getting hooked onto the content of what we're experiencing.
Right.
And therefore increasing the bandwidth of what we perceive. Yes. And that's really what it all comes down to. And quite frankly, there's a simplicity in that. Namely, that the only reason why we are unfamiliar with the lingo or with these mechanics of perception is because we've never really been taught them. Mm-hmm. And so this is a gap that we have specialized on, and this is what we help people with to develop. It's a natural sense that we all have to allow our perception to increase in bandwidth. Now, that said, I want to point out another thing, and that is that we have more than, just 1 or 5 senses, if you will, and that we actually are dealing with the simultaneous measuring and scanning tools within us. However, the one that provides the highest bandwidth, and therefore, in fact, actually the highest density of information, is the one that is most unaware or most unconscious to us, and that is the perception that happens through our heart field. Mm-hmm. And you've probably already guessed it, the reason why we've stressed, focused you on, focusing on your breath, doing heart breathing, doing heart clearing, and so forth, is because before we can begin this journey of increasing our energetic perception, we kind of have to train the tool that we're going to use for this, and this is our heart field. Mm-hmm. We now know, or we as in science know, that there is a memory storage in our heart field, that there's actually memory storage in our cardiac tissue. There's many or much research being conducted right now as to how it comes that we seem to have 2 processing centers, and not just one as previously believed, namely our brain. So to be a bit more practical about this, the way this basically works is that you first become aware that there's a difference between sensations, emotions, and feelings. And then the entire cluster, so to speak, of all of them coming together is called perception. Or your energetic perception, because your subjective perception, as we've already illuminated, can be quite faulty. Mm-hmm. And in order to walk this pathway with us here, you may run into immediate contradictions there within yourself. What is the difference between feeling, emoting, and sensing? That's because we've never really been made aware of this. So this is one of the first things we train here. And the way it happens within us, how the signals that are coming in being processed, is in accordance to this density of our different layers of being. I don't know if you remember this chart that I showed in the beginning. The physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, the etheric, and the energetic. So this means that we perceive signals in all of these, or in all of these layers, but we are really only aware of some of the physical, emotional, and mental. And the way this works, once more, the signal comes in, it is your physical sensation that will react, and I say react here on purpose because it's hardwired, in a certain way. It will receive a nerve stimulus, and then there will be another reaction to it, which is your emotion that then sort of recalls what this could possibly mean. And it's easier for our system to work with stored memory of emotions because that goes the fastest. So it's hardwired in our autonomous nervous system. And then comes the mind that tries to make sense of all of this, that tries to relate it to the past, to transpose it or infer it or deduct it into the future. And that's when it actually arrives in your brain. So your brain perceives a signal after it went through all these different stages of sensing and emoting. And that's when your brain basically forms the opinion about what is going on. All this, of course, happens within fractions of 1 second. Mm-hmm. And so by the time you are then reacting to whatever it is that you're perceiving, you're basically locked into your autonomous nervous system, and that's why it's so difficult for us to overcome our hardwires. Yes. Hey, London. Welcome.
Oh, cool. Everybody.
Yes. So, this is wonderful. Keep posting, guys. We love your hearts, by the way, because that reminds us on staying in our heart while we're talking about all this like technical stuff. So anyway, so here, this is a new view that we're offering you, as in how signals are really processed within you. Now comes the processing that happens simultaneously in our heart field, and the processing in our heart field functions differently. It operates on a holographic level, which means that our heart field perceives, the totality of all information together, non-locally, non-temporal, and non-linear, which is something that our brain simply can't process. This is where the acceptance that we brought in comes in, that our ego mind literally is incapable of processing these energetic sensations that you have. So your heart field perceives things holographically, but it has absolutely no way to communicate this to your brain because your brain is linear. So the biggest issue that we as energetically sensitives and empaths face is that we have not yet developed an adequate mediator between the two. So we separate these things out, and that's what usually leads to our fragmentation and us sort of suffering from our energetic sensitivity, because we simply can't bring these two together. So we have all these feelings and sensations, but we don't really know what they mean, and we can't really translate this into a way that the brain can, or the ego mind can, accept this as your energetic reality. And we talked about this yesterday. And so what I want you to understand, that when it comes to allowing versus controlling, that the biggest thing you're up against is your ego mind thinking that it is the end of all things, that it is, all there is. The truth is, there's a lot more. And we are also able to perceive that lot more, but we are not able to transcode this sufficiently so that we can translate this into like practical steps, or translate this into this is fully congruent to me, or this is makes sense, this is harmonious to me, this is conducive for me, this is true to me, this is something that leads to expansion of my energy, this is a good choice, this is a good solution. We are unable to discern this because we simply don't have this mediator that can help us with the discernment. So I want to give you guys all a heads up here once more, to not beat yourself up, because the inability to discern what's true to you, what you're truly feeling, and how to efficiently express this and communicate this is not because you're inadequate. It's because you have nobody's ever told you that there's a part in you that needs to be included, that needs to be worked with. And it's kind of like learning a new language, guys. You will first just pick up a few vocabulary words, and you will then experience certain things that allow you to have the courage to go further, and then you'll begin to be able to make the context, and you begin to understand sentence a little bit, and then you get the grammar rules, and then you get the you constantly refine this, and you get the nuances of this new language that you're learning. And the same applies to energy work. So to make this a little more digestible for you, where we're going with this here, namely the mechanics of your matrix programming, all right, is that we want you to be open to learn your energetic vocabulary now. And this, of course, is a new journey, just like it is when you start learning a new language. Okay, so it's the challenge is to not be hard on yourself. That's very important in the process, because you have to allow yourself to experience. You have to allow yourself to feel your true feelings and sensations. And
Right.
remember how hard it is to feel fear, to sit through our fear. You know, all of our ego's coping mechanisms, they all derive around avoiding
Hmm.
feeling your true feelings. So it's not that you are inadequate, it is that you've never learned how to really do this. So this is what we're trying to transport.
Right. And by giving yourself a bit of a break and remembering that this is something new, that you can do this. And you already have been to some degree, but now you're really focusing on it. So it's remembering that you're dealing with things as opposed to coping with them. You're really working upon feeling as opposed to thinking and emoting. And by keeping or by trying to keep doing this, what happens is you develop the ability, and it gets stronger all the time. Your ability to discern and pick up on things, it grows. Definitely.
And I want to I'll put something here onto the screen. It's another quote
Hmm.
um, that helps you to align to what it is that we're trying to transport here. We've talked about choices.
Hmm.
We've talked about our ability to even identify that we have a choice. Now we're beginning to qualify our choices, and with it, of course, our solutions, or the solutions that exist within us that we just cannot access at times when our energy is too low.
Hmm.
And the quote goes like this: all choices affect your personal energy, but not just based on their outcome, but more importantly, based on the energy and inner alignment at the moment of making that choice. That's something we talked about yesterday.
Hmm.
From an energetic viewpoint, a healthy choice has a higher vibration than an unhealthy choice. So the state of your personal energy is the sum of all your choices, ergo, the sum of all your energetic states that you allow yourself to be in. In other words, the conclusion is that if you want to become able to make better choices,
Hmm.
to become able to discern choices more efficiently, and therefore become able to access these higher solutions, the inner higher guidance in you, then you need to pay attention to where your energy goes moment to moment.
Hmm.
And for this, you need to be open and allow yourself to explore this a little more.
Hmm.
And this is where the mechanics of energy work come in. And you've probably already guessed it. I mean, we're going to talk about energy flow and energy centers here from now on, but we need to introduce this to you a little bit first. And so I want to bring back something that I showed at, I think it was the first day or the second day, Jeff, I don't remember.
No, it was
The energy flow.
a little bit later, but yeah.
We looked at the exits there for the sake of releasing energies and clearing energies, even without knowing sort of where they originate and all that. But right now, I just want you to pay attention to the colors and the main sort of circle that you see there. Energy comes in from below, from the planet. This is like, part of the source of our energy, not etherically, but on a physical level. And it flows through our entire system and gets regulated by energy centers, so-called chakras, at any of these different density levels, or in these different density levels. And if you just focus on the colors here that help us to visualize this, and then you will notice that it isn't so much really the speed or the intensity that we are measuring or that we're looking at, but on the long run, we'll look at the quality and the balance of things that we introduced to you yesterday. And this allows us then to pinpoint a little more where some of these energetic, say, imbalances that we want to learn to address in our attempt to improve our energy flow. It allows us to identify where these are. And just for terminology's sake here, these colors correspond with these so-called chakras. But we don't give you a way to visualize them. I find this counterproductive. It's very important that everybody learns their own vocabulary, their own lexicon of inner sensations. And so we tend to show things more in regards to where you will most likely feel energetic sensations if they are linked to an imbalance of a specific energy center. So here you can see we associate the colors with, our 7 main physical chakras, first, second, third, and so forth, which all have different names. We don't need to go further into this. This is a part of really making an effort to study these kind of things. However, we want to spike your interest in this, because once you get to that place where you begin to see that, hey, there are patterns. And after all, we're talking about matrix programming. We're talking about, of course, human collective archetypes and stuff like that. So there are connections with our emotional and spiritual, say, unfinished business, as we talked about it yesterday. And I will provide these charts that come from our Sacred Self-Healing course here with the video. I just want to give you a heads up here that learning this lingo and building this inner lexicon of energetic sensations can tremendously help you to identify what you need to work on or where you need to focus when it comes to, like, say, overcoming certain impedances or challenges that you have, or recurring or persistent patterns.
It helps with the associations. You begin to associate certain things and it develops mental pathways and everything. So it can be really beneficial to study these things a bit.
Yeah, and this may, to some of you, this may feel a bit overwhelming right now because there's a lot of technical stuff, but it really isn't that hard. The harder part is really to walk the talk, to set this, to translate this into your practical, into your densest, namely 3D physical layer, the one that produces your physical reality, okay? And that's what we're going to try to help you out with practical implementation steps here today. And I'm reading your comments. Yes, and James, you're making a very cool and profound comment here. I find trying to focus on all the things I'm grateful for in the present moment seems to help me to reduce fear more. Yes, it's not a matter of more or less. This is the practical step of tuning into your heart field. This is what, from an energy work perspective, would be called the heart consciousness, namely being in the present moment, being able to be fully present. But guess what? The reason why you're not, or not you personally, but most of us are not able to be fully present is because we have too many imbalances. We have too many fragments. We have too much hidden stuff. We have too much unfinished business. And that's why we avoid. That's why we cop out. That's how the ego, gets into top form, to create all these stories for us and to create, all these layers of deception for us. So yes, it is very simple in our understanding, but not easy in implementation.
Well, another thing, too, that James brought in there is being grateful. By being grateful for everything, you also move into the present, because then you accept everything. Now, you did talk about the focus on the positive, but if you learn how to be grateful for it all, even the not so fun stuff, then you begin to shift actually into a very present moment. And that actually really helps to begin to feel more.
And just to bring this into context with what we have talked about yesterday and what this quote here really points out, is that it's all about the energetic frequency, the vibration of a certain alignment that we have. And yes, gratitude is a very high vibratory alignment. In other words, absolutely correct, James.
Yes.
If you can, regardless of what you're experiencing, shift your energy into gratitude for whatever the experience is, and seeing this as a learning experience, and seeing this as, those are just reframing tools, but seeing this as something that brings you closer to your true self and to your true feelings, then you are on the right pathway, because you are literally out vibrating the fear through gratitude. So broken down, and we will continue doing this here in these following days, you will see that you can reduce every emotion and every sensation really to a vibratory state. And this is then where the circle closes and where you begin to see, hey, true, everything is just energy. And all I really need to focus on is the alignment that a certain energetic state, produces, and then recognize or discern, whether this is contractive for me, conducive, or conducive or expansive. All right. And that's what this mediator, this transcoder in you can do for you. And the way we suggest you to do this is by really allowing yourself to feel and consciously letting go of trying to control your experience, so that you can actually have a choice. The problem with our hardwired matrix programming is that we often find ourselves in that place of reactivity that does not allow us to even recognize that we have a choice. Not to mention, the aftermath, where, then of course the ego begins to beat us up and judges us and so forth, which then perpetuates the downward spiral of our energetic states. So in the physical, for the implementation steps, in the physical, we want you to, you don't need any prior knowledge of chakras or energy centers, but I would encourage you to use the charts to pinpoint things, to locate, like become an explorer, okay? Like really allow yourself to just explore a little bit, and like every good explorer or scientist, just take note of things, just write them down. So today, I felt this and this sensation in my body, and write down where you felt it, and then look at the chart and look at like, what chakra could this be linked to? And then investigate your emotional state that came with it, your feeling, your emotion about it. So, hey, today, and this is actually true, I'm feeling a very strong pain in the neck. And that, this is a physical sensation. The emotional reaction to this is, oh, shoot, this is normally how some, of my headaches or some of my really contracted energetic states start. So I'm up against the fear that this is the beginning of the end. All right. So write that down and write down the emotion that comes with it. Then mentally, it is, our judgment really that filters some of what we're sensing and what we're emotion. So write down along with this, what do you think about what you are sensing there and what you're emoting? And my inner critical voice says, oh, that's total bullshit. You can out-vibrate that, you don't believe into the story and so forth. But that's years of practice, to remind myself that this is actually not reality yet. So why would I align my energy to maybe getting sick now? Where it hasn't even happened yet.
And with the mental thought ones, if you've got a lot of ability to think about things, don't be shocked if multiple pathways of thinking come in. When I first started doing this, I was like, holy cow, I've got like 5 or 6 things coming through here with judgment and trying to control things and dodging and coping and, distraction, all kinds of stuff. So have a little bit of fun with this. Like I cracked up. Like first I got freaked out, but then I cracked up about like all the different streams of thought patterns that came through.
How many voices did you hear inside
the
of you?
first time I did critical inner voice work, I heard 4 different voices of my own in different, and not like crazy voices, but more like just these parts of me. If I linked into them, like one sounded like Spock, one sounded like, afraid child, it was just all these parts of me that were, because I was slightly fragmented at the time, that were trying to control things. And it was just crazy. But it was actually, I started cracking up. At one point I just realized, okay, I got some work to do. I started laughing, and that helped.
Yeah. So you see there's these fragments that Jeff mentioned. Oh, yeah. Those are these different parts in us that actually kind of compete with another, or that's why we call them fragments. They either suppress one another or they try to go into the foreground. And for you, your job here is to just allow all that and just take note of it. Like just write this down. This morning I had an idea, Jeff. We should actually come up with a 21-day journal, and give this to people, because
Yeah.
every day has so much, or every stage of this journey has so many suggestions that people really need to keep all this together to see the context.
Well, plus if they keep going and you do this journal, you can start. When I started doing this stuff, I started laughing, like in a good way, in a healthy way, about my patterns and my programs, because I realized that you begin to see how much stuff your ego attempts to keep things in charge. Like, I was like, holy cow, no wonder I have problems. Because it's like all these layers showed up. I'm like, all right.
Right, because ultimately it's all about, how do I truly feel? What do I truly need?
Yes.
And what do I truly want? And this then leads to the behavioral social aspect of this training. And that is, how congruent am I expressing how I'm truly feeling?
Right.
Do I pretend everything is fine? Or do I go into like victimhood because I want extra attention from my partner because I am starting to have a headache? And of course, there's all kinds of ramifications of when I have a headache. So how congruent am I expressing what I'm truly feeling?
Right.
And once more, what I truly need.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I truly need. I need some sleep because I've only slept 2 hours last night, and for the umpth day in a row. So this pain in the neck is a sign for me, after years and years of exploring my energetic dynamics and mechanics, that I need to rest and I need to sleep. But this is just my lexicon of inner sensations, all right? So it's very important that you reinforce within yourself that it's okay to feel, any kind of combination or context in which you are sensing, feeling, and emoting.
Mm-hmm.
On an energy, on a spiritual level, there's one thing that I want to point your attention at, and that is also investigate what your beliefs are about what you're feeling. And this has a lot to do with dealing with unwanted emotions, for instance. Okay, so there's a notion, especially sort of in this spiritual community, that there are good and bad emotions. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that anger, for instance, is something bad. From an energetic point of view, that is not the case.
Mm-hmm.
Anger is an energy just like any other emotional state. It is slightly higher than fear. So to a degree, if you look at the strict definition of self-healing, you're out-vibrating your fear through anger, that would be considered a temporary healing,
Mm-hmm.
or, shift of your energy into the positive. It's just that when we get stuck there, that it becomes a negative emotion. Okay, so we're going to illuminate this tomorrow, by the way. But here, I want you to really pay attention to your judgments about your own
Mm-hmm.
sensations and feelings. There's this notion here when it comes to the spiritual, that everything that is linked to the flesh, to the temptation of our humanness, the fallacy of our humanness, that it's bad. No, it's not. It just is. And that's also aligning you, or that's what allowing helps you to align to, is, before you can make improvements, before you can make corrections, and before you can refine all this, you got to be willing to truly feel on all levels of your perception what it is that you're dealing with. And on an energy work level, the implementation here would be through opening yourself up to educating yourself. Like
Take a bit of time.
This is a learning process. So even though it includes your mental capabilities, but it is an opening up yourself for the woo-woo a little bit. Okay, it's not really as woo-woo as people think.
It's not that woo-woo.
It's a lot more technical than people think. However, open yourself up for that, and maybe connect with these charts, or Google things on the internet. We've created this entire 24-step course around this that we call Sacred Self-Healing Course, that implements this vocabulary in people, and allows to study this on the deepest level, including workbook and daily meditation, so including all the different levels of perception. And so the energy work technique that we are introducing here with this lesson today is reading energies as opposed to trying to control them. Just go into this place of allowing yourself to read your energies and learning this new language. And the corresponding energy work transmission for this process is our very popular energy management intensive. It's called the chakra intensive, with 3 days of learning those different layers of our energy centers, what they mean, and all this with the help of remote energy training sessions. So this is also a very new way of learning things that we have developed here at transCODES. Yes, and tomorrow we're going to look into the deeper, yes, Denise, that's absolutely correct. Education, educating, training, and opening ourselves for new information is a form of expansion.
It is, yes.
It's an alignment that will be perceived as expansive, as conducive by everybody. Because the more you know, and not just know as a knowledge, but the more you open yourself up for a new knowingness, the less fear you will perceive about the unknown.
And more pathways will show up too to try things.
Yes.
Yes, and that's the beauty part of it, the beautiful part of educating.
So the energetic coding here of allowing is really overcoming the fear of the unknown by opening ourselves up. So tomorrow we're going to talk about shadow. We're going to illuminate just a little bit the psychological viewpoint on this, and then help you see it in a different way, in an energetic way, because there's a different viewpoint when you open yourself up to the energetic layers of your being. And understanding yourself as an energetic being is something that you now need to reinforce through really allowing yourselves to feel your energies. Because if you still have unconscious or repressed like ways of dealing with your energetic sensitivity, or you judge your energetic sensitivity in a way that you feel it's annoying or it's confusing you, then you're blocking the perception on that level. So have fun with this.
Yes.
Really give yourself the space to explore this and allow this for yourself. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We will see you tomorrow at a different time. We have a birthday party going on here for a 4-year-old. So just so you know, this is the reason I'm going to have to cut this out. I have not decided yet when, either before or after the party. So probably in the later evening hours. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll get a notification.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here and for sharing the space and your time with us. We hope to see you tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone.